Trying to have conversation with people in a foreign language can be exhausting. All of the tricks and tactics we use to connect with people in our own language no longer work. And the task of trying to build a connection with someone in a language you're not fluent in can feel overwhelming. This is the problem I had when I first left the US. I moved to Argentina with barely any knowledge of Spanish, and I had to learn how to build connections with people when I didn't speak the language well at all. I was there for a few months, and during that time, I started to work on 5 skills that allowed me to connect with other people even when my knowledge of their language was limited. After Argentina, I moved to Russia, then Morocco, then Thailand, before eventually settling in Portugal. Every time I moved, I tested and refined these 5 conversation skills. Because I have tested these 5 skills so many times in so many different countries and cultures, I'm now confident I can build a connection with almost anyone. In this video, I'm going to share those 5 skills with you so that you can start having deeper conversations and building connections in English. Let's get started. First, we need to define what is a great conversation. It doesn't matter what the context is. It could be a professional meeting, a date, or making friends at a bar. The goal of all conversation is to build connections with other people. However, connections only happen when 2 people are discussing a topic they are both interested in. Those topics are the sweet spot where great conversations occur. The question is, how do you find those sweet spots? Often when people are in a conversation, they try to find topics of mutual interest by asking directly. This is kind of a bad tactic because it can lead to conversations like this. Hey man, nice to meet you. So, you into sports? Not really. You into music? No. Politics? No. Gym? Here's a much better technique. Take things you know the other person likes and then ask questions about that topic that are interesting for you. For example, I met somebody who loves football. I don't care about football at all, so I'm not going to ask him about his favorite team or football strategy or how to play. I just don't care about those things. However, I do care about psychology, other cultures, and crime, so I can make questions that involve football and the things I like. For example, are there ways that football players try to psych each other out? What is the culture of football in your country? Do you have soccer hooligans in your country? This is a much faster way to find good conversation topics. And because you're trying to combine conversation topics, you usually end up having conversations that are very different and unexpected. So once you find a topic of mutual interest, the next skill is to keep the conversation going. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make when they're asking questions is jumping from topic to topic. Hey, do you like pizza? Yeah, I like pizza. Cool. What's your favorite movie? I guess Star Wars? Nice. Okay. Do you like exercising? Yeah. When you switch topics with every question, it is extremely stressful for the person you're talking to. They can't relax because they have no idea where the conversation will go. It almost feels like you're stealing information from them. Instead, link questions so you're responding to their answers. So, what do you like to do in the city? Oh, I love the parks here. Aw, me too, man. What do you do in the park? I'm a read under a tree guy. Me and my friends usually play frisbee. Respect. Linking questions is also super helpful if you're not confident in your speaking skills in a foreign language. Most people can listen at a higher level than they speak. If you want to start having conversations in English, you can first focus on asking questions and listening. Then, as your fluency gets higher, you can start speaking more. Skill 3, giving example answers. You may have noticed in the last dialogue I used another skill. I said, "Aw, me too, man. What do you do in the park? I'm a read under a tree guy."
I'm a read under a tree guy.
After I asked the question, I gave an example answer of the kind of information I wanted. This is a great skill to develop for 3 reasons. First, it is very helpful if English is not your first language. You might make a grammar mistake or you might have a strong accent. Giving the other person an example of the kind of information you want can really help them understand you. I use this tactic all the time when I'm speaking foreign languages, and it really helps. Second, giving example answers allows you to say interesting things about yourself. So, do you like exercising? I used to do a lot of mountain climbing, but I recently switched to yoga. Oh yeah, I do CrossFit. Why did you switch from mountain climbing to yoga? That's an interesting transition. And the third reason this is a really good skill is that it allows you to talk about more sensitive subjects. In my experience, people want to talk about things like politics or religion. However, being the first person to say your opinions can feel really vulnerable. People are afraid they will be attacked or judged for their beliefs. If you take the first step and say your opinion, people will feel much safer talking to you. So, what are your political views? Personally, I'm like a liberal centrist. I find extremes on either side very worrying. Just by answering first, I made the conversation feel much safer for this guy. If he agrees with me, he will feel comfortable saying so. If he disagrees with me, he can choose to talk about the topic or change the conversation. Now, I've talked about how to ask questions in conversation. Let's look at how to answer questions and express your own opinions. It doesn't matter if I'm speaking English or another language. I always try to say my ideas and opinions in 1 to 3 sentences. And unless I'm telling a story, I really try not to go past 5 sentences. I do this for several reasons. First, it makes me a better communicator. When you try to shorten your answers, you learn to cut out extra information and say your ideas more clearly and directly. Second, if you're speaking in a foreign language, you make fewer mistakes if you say fewer sentences. In my experience, people make the most mistakes not when they have a clear idea of what they want to say, but when they're not sure of their message. When people start a sentence, they're not sure what they want to talk about, then they don't know what to say, then they mention something else, then come back to the main idea, it makes it much more likely that they will make a grammar mistake. However, if you wait a second and try and think of how to say the idea in 2 or 3 sentences, mistakes are much less likely to occur. Finally, when you give short answers, you're much more pleasant to talk to. People who give very long answers tend to dominate the conversation. Even if somebody doesn't dominate the conversation, long answers can be super stressful. The longer your answer is, the more people have to focus on you and remember everything you say, which is very tiring. So, as much as possible, try to keep your answers to fewer sentences. Now, we are at the last and most important skill for connecting with people. There are 2 kinds of listening you need to master: listening for content and listening for perspective. Most people barely listen for content. If you master both types of listening, you will be way ahead of the game. When you're listening for content, you're trying to understand exactly what the other person is saying. And there is one phrase I use that massively increases my ability to connect with others. In English, as well as other languages, when I'm talking with somebody and I want to make sure I understand what they're saying, I will stop them and say, "If I understood correctly," and then I will repeat back their message in my own words. This has 2 great benefits. First, it protects you from misunderstandings if you're talking to someone in a foreign language. Second, research shows that repeating back what somebody said actually makes them like you more. In an experiment, 2 waitresses took orders at a restaurant. One waitress repeated back exactly what the customer ordered. The other waitress just responded, "Got it." The one who repeated back the order got significantly more tips. So, when you're in a conversation and you want to be double sure you understood what the other person said, stop them and repeat back their idea in your own words. The second type of listening is listening for perspective. Most people only ever try and see the world from their own perspective. 2 people are talking about dogs. Person A loves dogs because they're friendly and playful. Person B hates dogs because they're dirty and take a lot of attention. When person A is talking, person B simply ignores anything that doesn't conform to their own beliefs. Instead, when you listen to somebody, you should try and see the world through their eyes. You don't have to agree with them, but trying to understand the world from another person's perspective helps you build respect and empathy towards others. Also, seeing the world from another person's perspective helps expand your own worldview. So, those are the 5 conversation and connection skills you can develop. I hope you found something useful in this video. If you have any questions about conversation skills or communication skills in English, please leave them in the comments, and I hope you have a good one.